Hi, I'm Liliana Partida, the nutritionist for Center for New Medicine. And this is Dr. Acevedo, and he runs our healing department for the center. Now, we are going to talk to you about a really great and exciting topic today, one that I'm very passionate about because it has to do with anti-aging and boosting weight loss. Now, all of you are familiar with fasting, of course. It's been popularized so much by so many different doctors. But today we really want to kind of hone in on the different types of fasting, from the easiest to sometimes people will say the most difficult. But honestly, we're going to show you how the most difficult type of a fasting can be actually just as easy as some of the simpler ones. Now, people fast for many reasons, whether it's for religious purposes, ceremonial reasons, or for even before procedures that they do medically. So for whatever your reason is today, I hope you're going to find some pearls of wisdom that are going to support you. Now, one of as you know, intermittent fasting has become a buzzword. And I myself intermittent fast pretty much 7 days a week. And why do I do it? I strictly do it for anti-aging purposes. And so again, it may not be for everybody, but it's certainly a great way to just test to see if this is a good fit for you. So I want to talk to you a little bit about intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting means that we are having a period of time that we are abstaining from food. Now, I'm going to talk to you about circadian rhythm fasting, so you're really going to have a lot of choices here. Now, with the basic intermediate fasting, for myself, I basically eat at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I stop eating at 7 o'clock in my circadian rhythm of eating. Now, what this allows, it allows my body to access fat for fuel under the best of circumstances. Because between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning, your body goes into a repair mode. During this time, your body utilizes fat and extra stored calories, mainly glucose, to repair your body. Now, one thing that we know for sure, and you may not know this, is that insulin is produced when you eat a meal. And so insulin is the vehicle that drives these nutrients into the cell wall, it takes it to the muscles, and then it stores the rest in the liver as glycogen. Now, when we stop eating at 7 o'clock at night, we've got usually a 3 to 4 hour window before we start our repair cycle. Now, again, if I had a snack right before I went to bed, then that would mean that I would produce insulin. So my ability to burn fat for fuel at that time would be impaired. So nighttime snacking is an absolute no-no, regardless whether you adopt any of these fasting rules. Now, if I stop eating at 7:30 at night, so I will have, your body usually is able to store enough glucose very easily accessible for about 12 hours. So 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to get a signal that says, hey, isn't it time to eat a meal now? I've depleted some of my sugar stores. Now, what I say is, yeah, I'm a little hungry, but I've got plenty of fat in the fat bank for you to utilize. But if I had a shake or I had a boiled egg or a piece of bread or something of that nature, my body again would be under the influence of insulin. When insulin is in your blood, guess what? You do not burn any fat at all for approximately about 3 hours. So if I resist the urge to eat and I drink my 16 ounces of water, and then maybe have a cup of matcha tea or black tea or black coffee, that'll kind of stave off my hunger. And I will be able to go, for me, I go till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, for some of you, that might be too much, and 10 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock might be a suitable hour for you, depending on your ability to be able to access your stored fat. So now, from 7 o'clock at night, all the way for me until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm really using a secondary source of fuel, which is my fat. And why not? We've got it there, and it's really, something that our primary instincts wants to use. Remember, we come from a caveman mindset, the feast and famine mindset. But obviously, we live in a day where we rarely skip a meal, and when we do, we end up gorging. And so intermittent fasting is wonderful. Now, a lot of people have heard about the bulletproof coffee. And this is another way to intermittent fast, but you are breaking your fast, but what you're breaking it with is with fats. Now, remember I said that an egg or a piece of bread will stimulate insulin, but fat can actually enter across the cells without the need of insulin. So really, fat has wonderful calories. So what I do is when I make either a matcha tea or a coffee, I will put a tablespoon of coconut oil, and Dave Asprey recommends a tablespoon of grass-fed butter. But I can put, for myself, I like 2 tablespoons of cream, which is basically a liquid butter. So really, I'm consuming somewhere between 150 and sometimes 200 calories. So my brain is happy. I can function perfectly throughout the day. And that caffeine in the coffee and or the matcha tea really it dulls my hunger. So again, I got calories to stimulate my mental activity, my metabolism, but my body is still able to use fat for fuel. So again, that is a great way to start out, is just test yourself and see how long you can go before you really feel hungry. And I'm not talking about emotional hunger and need to get a good night's sleep and you want to eat something. I'm talking about where your stomach really starting to gurgle and twist a little bit. And we all know what that feels like. So that is a great way to start out. Even if you want to go into doing fasting, it's a great way to get your body adapted to be able to using fat for fuel. One of my secrets to staying young at 73. I'm not quite there yet, 63 years old. Now, the other thing that is really popular is called circadian rhythm fasting. And this is using between an 8-hour window of eating up to a 10-hour or 12-hour period. So again, what I said earlier, I pretty much do the circadian mindset. A lot of my patients will go from 7 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that works very well. Naturally, the older you get, the easier it is to do this because honestly, we don't need as many calories as we did when we were younger. In fact, it's going to age us far faster if we overconsume food. Right, Dr. Acevedo? Yes. Don't we know that the one thing we know for sure is that caloric restriction is the secret to anti-aging?
Exactly. And when you're doing that, caloric restriction, it stimulates the longevity genes. In fact, since you mentioned that, there's actually a Caloric Restriction Society International, where these people really restricted their caloric intake to, if I'm not mistaken, it's about maybe 900 or 700 calories per day. And one of the founders, the president, just turned 70, I think 2 to 3 years ago. And guess what? Although he's 70 years old, but all of his parameters, his heart rate, his blood pressure, cholesterol, he's not on any medications. Looks like he's in his 40s.
There you go. So that's awesome. I love the fact that we can really turn back the hands of time without doing any augmentation in regards to aesthetics. Now, the other thing that we're talking about, the circadian rhythm, you've got to choose what works best for you. For me, from 1 o'clock till 7 o'clock works great for me. Other people, they go to sleep at 9 o'clock in the evening, and so for them, an earlier period is better. Now, one of the things you want to understand is your digestive fire is more active between in the morning till, let's just say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. After that, we start to slow down and it starts to get dark. Our digestive system even begins to slow down because we're entering into the mindset of sleep and our production of melatonin. So this is why eating large, heavy meals at night really prevents us oftentimes from having a really good night's sleep. So again, your biggest meal really should be in the afternoon, and especially if you're our age. So it makes it a lot easier. And if we're not having that evening snack, then we'll really be able to access our fat a little bit better. So try one of those methods, whether it's intermittent fasting or circadian rhythm fasting, where you're just eating a certain time of the day. Now, there is another method of fasting, and this is what we call alternative fasting, every other day. So that means one day we would eat, healthy. I mean, we're not talking gorging and eating pizza and French fries and all the foods that we know really aren't very nutritious for us, but it's eating a healthy, normal diet one day and then fasting the next day. Eating a normal diet one day and then fasting the next day. Now, a lot of people love this because it doesn't give them that restriction of being on a caloric restricted program for too long a period of time. It helps boost their emotions in regards to staying onto a protocol that does require some mindful thinking. And so again, I love that mindset too. Now, you don't have to completely restrict all foods. You can go to a 500 calorie intake. And so kind of think, if I had one meal a day, let's just say mid-afternoon, somewhere around anywhere between 2 or 3 o'clock, and I ate to feel full, to really enjoy myself with what I want to eat, well, I keep saying my age, but it's the truth. I'm not hungry for the rest of the night. Usually in the evening when I am wanting a little something, it's not that I'm hungry, it's I'm emotionally needing some satisfaction. So we must distinguish between hunger and emotional hunger. And so that is just a wonderful way as well. So try one of those. Is one of those methods. I think you'll really find it really quite easy. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about where the science has mostly been, right, Dr. Acevedo,
Yes.
with the water fasting. Now, when I think of water fasting, the first thing that comes to mind is starving and I'm going to be so hungry. And
Yeah.
even just that mindset propels me into thinking the day before, well, I'm just going to eat whatever I want to eat because I'm going to be starving for the next 5 days, which is the worst attitude to go into this. Because in all reality, when you go into a water fast, you want to prepare your body and not go into shock so that you really can have a little bit more comfort. So there's ways to go into this comfortably and ways to move out of it very comfortably as well. So having a gorge meal the night before because you're not getting, this is the last supper, is not a good idea. I always tell my patients, I don't know you, Dr. Acevedo, what do you recommend? I recommend just one meal a day or skip their dinner meal before they proceed fasting. Would you say that would be a good idea?
I agree. Yeah, I say that to my patients pretty much the same way that you said. And I know some of them will start to panic, but I tell them the science behind it and they start, oh, okay, there's a lot of benefits. So one of the things that I'll point out was from Professor Longo's research, that he was testing it on the yeast, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and hopefully I pronounced it right. He noticed two things. So one, when they put them on water only fast, it lived longer than the control two times longer than the control. And number two, guess what? There's a nutritional component that activates the RAS and PKA genes, and these are the genes that are activated when you're water only fast, and these are the genes that I'm sorry. So the component of what he found was the sugar, actually. So the sugar, when they feed the control with sugar, it activated the RAS and the PKA genes, which are the genes that accelerates aging. Pretty remarkable. So I always tell my patients, sugar is a poison.
Yes.
So when they are on water fast, that downregulates those genes, the RAS and PKA, and all other genes that are activated will be the sirtuins, and then it inhibits also the mTOR. So.
Yes. So the mTOR gene, doesn't that stimulate insulin? And of course, insulin, we've got that in your blood. We've already ascertained that you don't burn fat for fuel. And so if we can't burn fat for fuel, then again, we just end up in a storage site and then taxing our liver and all of our other functions. So most of the research has been done on water fasting, and it's incredible in regards of the actual benefits. So besides the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so hungry, if we really kind of embrace what the benefits are going to be, you can't get this any other way. So as Dr. Acevedo said, it stimulates specific things in the body that we can't get anywhere else. It will actually not only to down-regulate as far as insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance, or what we would call pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, is an epidemic. And if you haven't had your hemoglobin A1C checked, you may not know if you're insulin resistant, and you just may find that your belly is getting bigger and bigger no matter how much you're trying to diet. And this is because your body is no longer utilizing fat for fuel, because when you become insulin resistant, you also become fat resistant. They work hand in hand. So the beautiful thing about fasting is that it allows your cells that used to be cement to soften up and to allow the glucose to enter the cell wall to utilize for energy. So fasting is my number one key that I tell patients that are pre-diabetic or diabetic that will reduce their numbers faster than any drug possible. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Acevedo?
Yes, I agree. Even also for cancer patients.
Right, and I want you to talk a little bit more lengthier on that as well. Now, the other thing that it does quite remarkably, and I'll have Dr. Acevedo just explain when this all happens, at which days and so forth. Because I had a patient say, "Oh gosh, I'm on the third day." Granted, it's winter right now. Your body wants metabolically active foods to keep you warm, and so your cravings are more emotional for the heat and for the satiety of it all. And so once I kind of reiterated on, because she was kind of like, "Gosh, what if I only do it 3 days?" And I said, "Okay, now let's talk about the benefits." It's not that you're trying to punish yourself for, over enjoying yourself in 2019 and the New Year's and all the holiday. It's what you're trying to do is love yourself. And so I went over the benefits. I said, okay, now what you're starting to happen is that today is the third day where you're starting to stimulate your human growth, not the human growth hormone quite yet. You're starting to go into what's called autophagy. Now, autophagy is where the body begins to break down cells that really are degenerative in the body. And so when it begins to break down, you really have some serious house cleaning that you cannot get any other way. It's fantastic. Now, the other thing that it does, it increases your stem cells. And this is where the longevity mindset comes in, because we know that stem cells are for repair, but it also increases the telomere, which is the length of the cell that tells us how long we are going to live, which is phenomenal. And so the other wonderful thing about it is usually around the fourth day, and Dr. Acevedo will go into this a little further, your body goes into a mindset of stimulating human growth hormone. So many people have the mistake of thinking, oh, okay, when I fast, I'm going to lose all my muscle, but it's really quite the contrary. Now, what begins to happen is because we're all about preservation. So what happens is that when I begin to increase that human growth hormone, it preserves my muscle. Because what is our brain saying? There's scarcity, there's no food, get out there and hunt. So it actually increases the metabolism, it increases human growth hormone, it increases your endorphins. It'll tell you, get up and go, get out there and hunt, you can do this, right? So it's a myth to think that when we skip meals or we are fasting, that we're actually going to lose our muscle. Quite the opposite. In fact, what I have found is long-term ketogenic diet, severe ketogenic diet, loses muscle more, and your body down regulates because it starts getting used to lower calories. So again, you'll find that ketogenic works fantastic, and I love it for weight loss. I love to do it for a 6-month period, 3-month period. But then again, we try to regulate them. We put what we call refeeds, but that's for another topic that we're going to get into as well. So there's just so many benefits. Now, Dr. Acevedo, tell us some of the markers that you have seen gone down with intermittent fasting, or with any of the things that we've talked about, or the fasting that we're going to be talking about, Prolon, as far as their blood markers.
Yeah, definitely. So I've seen CRP, which is a marker for inflammation. That goes down on patients that are doing intermittent fasting. And blood pressure goes down. Cholesterol levels, the triglycerides and all of those goes down. The blood sugar goes down, and this was replicated by those people who did the biosphere study in 1991 to 1993. So 8 scientists went inside the biosphere, which is located in southern Arizona, not far from Tucson. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was there. And it's a huge facility, and I went where the area they were doing, so they actually plant their food, they grow their own food there. It was restricted. They were not allowed to go out, so for 2 years they were there. So at the end of that study, it showed that all 8 of them had dramatically decreased blood pressure by 30%, cholesterol by 25%, cholesterol by 30%, blood pressure by 25%, blood sugar by 20%. They also lost body mass by about 20%. Really amazing, phenomenal result. I can't think of any drugs out there, pharmaceutical drugs, that can do this.
Exactly, and then of course what you're also doing is you're evading the problem that drugs can present in other problems with the chemistry of the body.
Then you get side effects because you
Right.
block other pathways there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So fasting is fantastic in any which way you choose. Now, of course, with water fasting, you know, I have a girlfriend of mine who water fasts, and she's thrilled. She loves it because she's become accustomed to it. She likes the high behind it, even in terms of the energy and the mental clarity she gets. But for me, you know, I probably have gone a good 3 days of water fasting, and that's probably my limit. My body really starts screaming, it's time to eat. And I really honor my body in that method. So I've never been brave enough to do a 5 or a 10 or 14-day fast like she has done, but she looks fantastic. She feels terrific. Her energy is high. I always just am so admire. I have what's called fasting envy when I'm around her when she is doing this. But again, it doesn't have to be that difficult. And so one of the wonderful things that we have discovered is a method to be able to get the same benefits of a water fast, but still being able to eat. Now imagine that, getting to kind of put the mindset that I don't have to really be starving to get these benefits is huge. And for me, it worked beautifully. As I said before, I'm all prescribed to anti-aging. So when I heard about this, I got myself and a few friends and we decided to do this together. And so it's called the Prolon Fasting Mimicking Kit. It's fantastic. And the beautiful thing about it, it's very, very easy to do. One of my patients said, it's great because it's mindless. You just take whatever box, and I'm going to show you in just a moment, that is for that day, and that's all you consume. So really, you don't have to think about, you know, the waters and the teas and the things that you're going to make and what you're going to have in regards to have or not have, because sometimes people will have bone broths or sometimes they'll do juicing fasting or master cleanser. But again, even with the juice fasting, you're getting a lot of calories because oftentimes they're juicing carrots and apples and fruits that have a lot of high sugar. And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to access fat for fuel. And if you've got plenty of sugar, why is the body going to use fat for fuel? It's not. Juice fasting have their place as far as alkaline the body and cleansing the body. But to achieve what we're trying to achieve with the anti-aging and weight loss, permanent weight loss, and getting your body, even after the fasting is over with, continued results, we find that either fasting with water, broth, or the Prolon kit is going to be the best in regards to achieving the markers that Dr. Acevedo had talked about. So what I want to do is I want to share a little bit about this Prolon fasting kit here. So it comes in this kit here. It's very simple. It comes with 5 little packets. So how easy is this? So my patients that travel a lot, this makes it so easy for them. And in the kit, you know, it's kind of like a surprise kit every day. Every day you're like, okay, what's in my kit today? And so you'll get 2 different types of soups. And it's nice because we're in winter, our body wants something warm. And so this works really nice. And the interesting thing about this, you might be thinking, how can I possibly get the same benefits of a water fast having some nutrition or food or calories? It's because the scientist has formulated this whole program in terms of the nutrient and its density to hide the calories from the body. I mean, how interesting is that? So I can still eat and still get the same benefits. So you've got 2 soups here. You've got a couple of different teas here. And again, it's not restricted to only the teas that are in here. You can have as much tea as you possibly want. And again, you know, the colder the weather, the more warmth. And so the teas are always really, really great. And then it's got some little things like a nice bar. And let me just tell you, when you're starting to think you're going to get hungry, guess what? It's time for you to take one of these things. So unlike a water fast, where you're kind of having to, you know, basically knuckle your way through for the first couple of days, you don't have to with this. And I found that when I was starting to get that hunger, like, you know, really kind of going past my hour, then a nice bar or something that was in this kit worked really fantastic. Now you also have things like a cracker. So for those people who need a little crunch and salt into their diet, this worked beautifully for me. So I'm a salty, crunchy person more than I am a sweet person, so this was fantastic. So it's got a little bit of something for everyone.
This is
Then
vegetarian, right?
it's completely vegan, actually. So
Yeah,
beyond vegetarian, it's vegan. And then it has another little treat bar, which is going to be made out of chocolate, and it's all nuts, seeds based. But again, it's fantastic tasting. So you're like, oh my gosh! On top of all of this, I get a little treat. It has a little olives in here as well. So how about you, Dr. Acevedo, when you were doing this? Did you find that just right when you were getting a little bit hungry, there was something in this box that you were allowed to have?
Yep, works well for me. I started that last year.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm gonna do that again this weekend.
Okay, fantastic.
So,
We'll talk to you a little bit about how often that you should do it. So,
oh, and by the way, I just want to emphasize this to everyone that this is an NIH-funded study, $40 million. So this is not just like any fad diet out there. This is science. So
exactly. Well, that's fantastic because we know that there is so many fad diets out there. And so when it's recognized in this manner, it gives us some confidence and faith. So you've got 5 days of this, and the first day you're going to have the most calories, which is probably somewhere around, I'd say, 1,000 calories, and then it goes to about 800 calories after that. And then it comes along with this nice bottle here that you're able to fill up twice a day, because we want you to drink a lot of water or teas in between, no matter what, whether you're doing intermittent fasting, whether you're doing water fasting, or any of the other ones. Water is essential. A lot of people, realize that the first couple of days of any kind of a dietary restriction, you lose a lot of weight. And yes, most of it is water as your body begins to declog some of the water that's onto the tissue. So that's important just as well. So cannot say enough about drinking water. So, Dr. Acevedo, can you walk us through a little bit just in terms of what day do you actually start using fat for fuel? When do you go into autophagy, and when is the human growth hormone time during this 5-day period?
right. So on day one, for example, that's when you start eating. So we know that after eating, your insulin goes up, right? Body tries to adjust by lowering your blood sugar, and that happens within 6 hours after you eat, and then between 6 and 24 hours, that goes to glycogen storage, and then within 6 to 24 hours, your body starts to, at the beginning of your fast, then your body starts to burn the glycogen stores, and after 24 hours, that's when, between 2 and 3 days, that's when as the glycogen stores gets depleted within 24 hours, then your body starts to break down the fats, and between 2 and 3 days, and that's when you start to see your ketone bodies going up. And ketone bodies are a breakdown product of your fats, and so then you go into what we call gluconeogenesis, or formation of glucose from non-glucose sources, which is like glycerol, for example, which is one of the breakdown products of fats and the amino acids. So then your body would start to use this as their main fuel, after your body used up the glucose. And based on the research, between 2 and 3rd day, your body will start to go into autophagy. And the best analogy that I use to explain to my patients, like a car, like an engine. So an engine, they usually add like additives in the gasoline to prevent gunk from building up. And that prolongs the life of the engine. But what if we not only doing that, but what if we replace the old parts with a new part? So trying to rebuild the car engine by replacing it with new parts. So that's what autophagy means. So replacing your old dead cells with new cells. And that happens between 2 and 3rd day, and on the 5th day, that's when your stem cells goes way up. In fact, when I went to a conference, one of the physicians there, she does stem cells, and she measured the stem cell for some reason. After doing this on the 5th day, her stem cells just way sky high.
Fantastic, excellent. One of the things that's really important is that our goal, and this is what we want you to know, is to support you through any way you choose to fast. We are going to have on Tuesday Q&A. So for the next couple of weeks, you can have any questions. I can coach you through this. You can purchase the Prolong kit at the Center for New Medicine. I would suggest, if you can, come on in. Let's do a body fat testing on you so we can get a measure where you start, where you end, and we can coach you through this over the next couple of weeks, which would be really exciting to start the new year with. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in to our Facebook Live educational series, and we'll look forward to see you next week with the Prolong Fasting Kit experience.